In the quiet village of Umuachi, there lived a young girl named Amara. She was the only child of her parents, and from the moment she was born, everyone knew she was special. The villagers often said she was as gentle as the morning breeze, with eyes that sparkled like the river under the sun. Not only was Amara kind and respectful, but she was also incredibly smart. From the time she started school, she always won the top prize for being the best student. Every year, she came home with a big award, and her parents would beam with pride. You see, Amara, her father would say, patting her head, education will take you far. You will not live an ordinary life. And Amara believed it. But life took a drastic turn for Amara when she grew older. Three new teachers arrived in the village to teach at the local school. At first, their presence was exciting for the students. They were young, energetic, and different from the old strict teachers. Amara was friendly with all of them, but over time, something terrible happened. She was invited to one of their houses for extra lessons. Trusting them, she went, only to find calamity there. The three teachers took advantage of her, shattering her world in a way she never imagined. They thought they had silenced her, but they didn't know Amara's strength or what would come next. Before that day, Amara had big dreams. She often sat under the old mango tree in front of her house, gazing at the clouds, dreaming about the future. Mama, Papa, she would say, one day I will leave this village. I will go to the city, wear fine clothes, and work in a tall building as a banker. Her mother would smile and nod. Yes, my child, you will do great things. Just keep studying. For years, Amara lived with hope in her heart, believing nothing could stand in the way of her dreams. But life had other plans. One sunny afternoon, Amara sat outside lost in her thoughts when she saw a man running toward the village square. His face was filled with panic. There's been an accident, he shouted. A cart overturned on the main road. Two people are badly injured. Villagers rushed to see what had happened, and within moments, the terrible news spread like wildfire. Amara's parents had been in that cart. By the time she reached them, it was too late. The entire village gathered to mourn. The funeral was grand. There were songs, prayers, and many tears. People whispered words of comfort, but nothing could heal Amara's broken heart. Days turned into weeks, and her life felt empty. She stopped paying attention in school. The once bright girl now sat in class, staring blankly at her books. Her teachers noticed, but no one scolded her. They understood her pain. Her childhood dreams of becoming a banker seemed to float farther and farther away. Just as Amara was beginning to lose all hope, something changed. One morning, as she walked into class, she noticed decorations, colorful ribbons and bright paper strips hanging from the ceiling. Her classmates were buzzing with excitement. What's going on? She asked her friend, Nika. You haven't heard? Nika whispered. The old teachers are leaving. We are getting three new ones. Young teachers from the city. The students couldn't contain their excitement. The old teachers had been strict and dull, but the new ones were said to be full of energy and new ideas. When the new teachers arrived, the schoolyard filled with chatter. There was Mr. Kola, the most approachable of the three. He had a warm smile and a way of making everyone feel comfortable. Mr. David, tall and serious, looked like someone who didn't joke much. Then there was Mr. Fred, a man who always carried himself with a certain arrogance. The first few weeks were lively. The students loved their fresh approach to teaching. The lessons were interactive, and for the first time, school felt fun. Everyone except Amara seemed to enjoy the change. She still felt lost in her grief and no amount of excitement could bring back what she had lost. One day, in the middle of a lesson, Mr. Kola called on Amara. "Amara," he said, "can you answer this question?" The class fell silent. Amara looked up, her mind completely blank. She had no idea what the lesson was about. The other students giggled. Some whispered, "She used to be the best in the class." Her face burned with embarrassment. Seeing the hurt in her eyes, Mr. Kola quickly changed the subject. After class, he found her sitting alone under the mango tree. "Amara," he said gently, sitting beside her, "I see that you're struggling. Do you want to talk about it?" At first, she hesitated, but then the words came pouring out. She told him about the accident, about losing her parents, and about how she no longer saw a future for herself. Mr. Kola listened carefully. "Amara," he said, "you are still the brilliant girl you once were. I know it's hard, but your parents wouldn't want you to give up. Let me help you." Amara nodded hesitantly. From that day, she began visiting Mr. Kola's house for extra lessons. Slowly, she started improving. She could answer questions again. The sadness didn't disappear, but for the long time in a long while, she felt a glimmer of hope. But while Mr. Kola helped her, the other two teachers had different intentions. Mr. David and Mr. Fred had always noticed Amara, but it wasn't until she began visiting Mr. Kola's house regularly that their twisted interest in her grew. They saw how she walked to his home, her school boots clutched to her chest, her hair neatly tied back. She was young, beautiful, and vulnerable, a combination that, in their minds, made her an easy target. One evening, as the sun dipped low in the sky, casting an orange glow over the village, the two men sat outside Mr. Fred's quarters, drinking palm wine and whispering. "That girl," Mr. Fred said, his voice slurred slightly from the alcohol. She is always with Kola. What do you think they're doing there?" Mr. David smirked. "You think he's just teaching her? Come on, he's enjoying her." Mr. Fred chuckled darkly. "And he wants to keep her all to himself. Selfish man." They sat in silence for a moment, each thinking the same vile thoughts. Then, Mr. David leaned forward, his voice dropping lower. "We should have our turn." Mr. Fred's eyes gleamed. "Exactly what I was thinking." The next day, they decided to confront Mr. Kola. It was after school when they found him sitting outside his house, marking papers. "Brother Kola," Mr. David said, his tone casual, "you spend a lot of time with that girl, Amara." Mr. Kola barely looked up. "She's a bright student. She just needs help getting back on track." Mr. Fred chuckled. "Come on, Kola. Let's not pretend. We all know why she's coming here." Mr. Kola's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Mr. David smirked. "We want a turn." Mr. Kola's face darkened instantly. He put down his pen and stood up. "Are you hearing yourselves? She's a child. She's been through enough already." Mr. Fred scoffed. "Oh, come on. Come on, Kola. You don't have to act like a saint. We know you've already taken her. Just share." Mr. Kola clenched his fist. His whole body trembled with rage. "I said no!" The other two laughed, unconvinced. "We'll see about that," Mr. David said as they walked away, already planning what they would do next. Mr. Kola sat down, his heart pounding. He knew these men were dangerous. He knew he had to protect Amara, but he had no idea how quickly things would spiral out of control. It was a hot afternoon where Amara made her way to Mr. Kola's house. She had her school books pressed against her chest. Her mind focused on the lesson ahead. Mr. Kola had been so kind to her, So patient. Thanks to him. Thanks to him, she was beginning to feel like herself again, slowly regaining the confidence she had lost. When she knocked on the door, she expected to hear his warm voice welcoming her in. But instead, the door creaked open, revealing Mr. David and Mr. Fred standing there, their face stretched into an unnatural smiles. Come in, Amara, Mr. Fred said smoothly. Kola stepped out. He said you can wait inside. Amara hesitated. Something about the way they looked at her made her stomach twist. But these were teachers, weren't they? Just like Mr. Kola. She stepped inside. The moment the door clicked shut behind her, she knew something was wrong. The men moved quickly, surrounding her. Mr. David grabbed her waist, his grip tight and painful. What are you doing? She stammered, trying to pull away. Mr. Fred chuckled. Relax, Amara. We just want to spend time with you. Panic set in. She tried to push past them, but Mr. David shoved her back, making her stumble. Please, she begged. Let me go. But they didn't listen. She fought, kicked, and screamed, but they were too strong. They forced her down, covering her mouth so no one could hear her cries. One by one, they took what they wanted. By the time they were done, Amara lay there, shaking, her body broken, her heart shattered. She couldn't move, she couldn't breathe. She had trusted them, and they had destroyed her trust. The next morning, Amara did not go to school. She couldn't. Her body ached, her soul felt crushed. She stayed inside, curled up in a corner of her small home, trying to disappear. But in a village as small as Umwachi, nothing stayed a secret for long. Whispers began. She's always with the teachers, someone said. Maybe she wasn't as innocent as we thought. A group of girls led by Ngozi, a longtime rival, spread the worst of the rumors. I saw her leaving their house late at night, Ngozi lied. She's been with all three of them. Before long, the whispers turned into full conversations. Women shook their heads in disapproval when Amara walked by. Such a shame, one muttered. She was such a promising girl. She's nothing but a disgrace, another added. Amira heard every word. She felt their stares burning into her skin. She wanted to scream the truth to tell them what really happened. But would they even believe her? She couldn't bear it. That night, she packed a small bag, took one last look at the village she had called home, and disappeared into the darkness. She had nowhere to go, but she knew she couldn't stay. Years passed. Mr. David, Mr. Fred, and Mr. Kola moved on with their lives. They returned to the city, started new jobs, made new friends. They never thought about Amara again. But fate did not forget. It started with Mr. David. He had landed a well-paying job and life was good. But one day, out of nowhere, his boss called him into the office. You're fired, the boss said. But why? Mr. David asked. I've done nothing wrong. His boss only shook his head. I don't know, but something tells me you should go. One evening, he received a call. His entire family, his mother, father, and younger brother had died in a freak accident. He collapsed to the door, grief consuming him. Next was Mr. Fred. One morning, he woke up feeling strange. His body felt weak, his skin pale. No doctor could explain what was wrong with him, and no medicine could cure him. One by one, their lives crumbled. They couldn't understand why. Then in desperation, they sought out a wise man known for his spiritual insights. This is no ordinary bad or good luck. The old man told them this is a punishment. The men exchanged fearful glances. Punishment for what? Mr. David asked. The old man stared deep into their eyes. Think back, he said. A girl named Amara. Their blood ran cold. They had long forgotten her, but the spirits had not. Terrified, the men rushed back to the village, but Amara was gone. They searched for days, asking everyone, but no one had seen her since she left. Just as they were losing hope, They realized if anyone knew where she was, it would be Mr. Kola. After more searching, they found him in the city. Where he opened the door, they saw her. Amara sat in the corner, playing with a young child, her face calm but distant. The men fell to their knees. Please, Mr. David begged. Forgive us. Amara's eyes were cold. You think you deserve forgiveness? She let them beg for a long time. Finally, she spoke. I'll forgive you, she said, her voice steady. But you will never have children. The men paled. That is the price, she said, and so it was. Amara found peace, while the men found nothing but regret. Because some sins can never be undone. If you want more entertaining stories like this, click on this video to learn about the girl who slept with every man in her village.